Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this morning's Healthcare World Series session. My name's Steve Gardner. I'm the Managing Director of Healthcare World. And this morning we're going to be talking about digital health investment, the global appetite for it, what's coming down the track, and what opportunities there are in digital health all around the world. Today's session is in conjunction with our sponsors from Emerge 2050. For those that aren't aware of that event, that is a digital health and investment event that's going to be taking place in Dubai on the 7th and 8th of May, something that Healthcare World is a media partner for, and we will have copies there for people to pick up, as well as sharing a number of sessions across the 2 days. It should be a really, really good debate. And I guess today is really a kind of preview of some of the kind of conversations and discussions that we're going to be having when we're out in Dubai in May. Joining me this morning for what should be a really interesting conversation are Waleed Katan from Be Healthy. Be Healthy, a Finnish tech startup spanning out of a large Finnish provider network who decided they needed to create their own tech. A great example of a hungry organisation in a strong growth phase. We also have Sadiq, and Sadiq, apologies if I get the surname mispronounced, Gustanev, I think that's correct, who is a healthcare expert and venture capitalist that advises VCs on their investment. And Simon Swift, familiar face to those who watch Healthcare World Series events regularly. The former founder of Methods Analytics, now founder of Lytics, a successful and exited founder who grew his company over a period of 4 or 5 years and successfully came both in and out of the venture capital and investment machine. Good morning to all of you. We're hoping also to be joined by Sophie Smith, founder and CEO of Navita Health, but I think that she's not been able to make her way in yet, so hopefully she'll join us as we go along. I want to start really by just asking you each in turn what you see the current state of the global market in digital healthcare is. So what are the areas of digital development? What are the areas that investors are interested in? Where are we currently in terms of digital health? Waleed, I'll start, if I may, with you.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I think the global market for digital healthcare is really experiencing some tremendous growth and transformation. Over the last few years, there's been huge technological advances that we've seen, specifically in increasing adoption of these digital technologies. As Be Healthy, thanks for the introduction. You mentioned we're patient engagement, patient-facing organization, and we've seen this demand really be driven by changes in the customer's behavior. So that's bringing a need for providers to adapt and embrace these new technologies to meet their customers' changing expectations. I think one of the main things I think that we're seeing from a technical change and advancement is also a lot of the hype that's taking place. These days, everybody's talking about the new buzzwords of AI, what that really means for healthcare. It's absolutely an important topic. I think where it's going to be talked about quite a bit here today. But really, when it comes to healthcare, it's trying to figure out and understand, how to experiment and bring in, work with these new technologies in a very safe and secure way. And organizations like all of ourselves and providers in this space really have to be diligent and being open to this new technology, but also being very careful to effectively or take advantage of it and choose the right use cases that are actually delivering real value for the organization and for the customers, versus just the hype that's going on in the industry.
A useful start. Simon, I guess your answer is probably going to be that one of the up and coming areas here is data, and that would probably be very correct, would it not?
It is. I think it's quite a complex picture at the moment. The froth around digital data AI that we saw during and just after the pandemic, I think, is definitely gone, and there's a lot more realism and caution. Certainly in the UK, investment is much more cautious. and people are not throwing money at any business that uses the magic words. Internationally, there's still a lot of appetite, but we need to be aware that I don't have the latest number, but well over 90% of all VC investment is still America globally. In terms of where the opportunities are, the challenge is in delivering real impact as opposed to making lots of noise, but not actually reaching the point where the rubber hits the road, which is a patient actually, or a person actually gaining benefit. We've seen some impressive failures where people have shiny technology that under the hood is less shiny, and can't make the business model work. So I think there are a number of things that are starting to inject a bit more realism into this market. Part of it is the slight funding crunch, and part of it is the realization by investors, entrepreneurs, and payers that unless we can really see an ROI, why are we going to do it? Just because it's shiny doesn't mean it's a good idea. I think the two recent EU papers, one on AI healthcare and one on data sharing, are very interesting. They're very strong signals in the market in the EU that is paid attention to globally. I think that's starting to make some noise. But I don't think this is the frothy, excitable place it was in 21, 22. I think this space is more cautious. And of course, Steve, I do agree, it's all about the data, because whatever pathways we're designing, whatever models we're training, it's all based on data.
Thanks for that, Simon. So from a VC, from an investor's point of view, do you agree with what Simon said there? Are we more cautious about where we're putting our investors' money?
Yes, I totally agree with Simon. He highlighted the very important points on digital health market and the current state of this industry. But, despite global fluctuations and the venture winter, as it's called, the venture winter and the tech sector, investor interest remains robust in digital healthcare. And the sector has seen significant investment. It is less than it was during the COVID, but although there is a funding slowdown, this has been as market adjustment. I would say that it's more like market correction rather than a decline in interest. And the ongoing investment highlights continued confidence in the potential of digital healthcare technologies, especially in the light of development of AI and large language models. It is very applicable to the current trends in healthcare VC focus, because we are moving to more personalized healthcare, and all solutions that are connected with personalized medicine, wearables, and AI drug discovery, AI insights based on your health data. All these applications are still in the focus of VCs. But me personally, because I have a solid background in biotech industry, I was following the progress of AI drug discovery in biotech, because this is an area that develops very slowly. It's very conservative, And there is a huge chance that all these companies, there are around 20 major players globally in AI, in drug discovery, they will make a huge shift, and we're close to the moment when they will disrupt the whole R&D process in biopharma. And that's very important and promising, and there is a huge unmet need specifically in this field, because maybe you know the Moore law in tech industry, when on every dollar investment, the progress of tech and industry is tremendous. And in biotech industry, during last few decades, we saw the opposite law, the Eroom's law. So the biopharma was very inefficient in biotech innovation. So still, there is huge need for innovation for big pharmas because of the patent cliff, and they look for these AI drug discovery and small biotechs that are very efficient in innovation. I would say that small biotechs, they are efficient. For the AI drug discovery, we still have to wait for the tangible results for the first approved FDA approved AI designed molecule. But I think that maybe next year, or we'll say the first molecules designed by AI that fulfilled all these clinical trials process. And that's why we during our Emerge upcoming conference, we decided to dedicate special panel discussion to AI solutions, how AI will change, how it will shape the future of healthcare. And we invited the most prominent venture capitalists and investors in biotech and health tech and digital health, along with prominent entrepreneurs that built a successful startup that and they already licensed like around 15 molecules. So we expect a very fruitful discussion on this topic.
Thanks, Sadiq. So from that perspective, I mean, Simon mentioned the idea of the magic words, and I guess the magic words, genomics, AI, are they the things that are, I guess, kind of floating investors' boats? Is it easier to get money out of investors if you have those elements involved in your business and in your pitch, or is it possible to find cash for things other than AI and genomics-based interventions? Sadiq.
Simon mentioned that all these startups they should have access to very well annotated data sets, because it's not enough to have a well-tuned, sophisticated algorithm. You have to get the well annotated data sets, so the result of the algorithm depends on the data sets that you make the learning on. And that is this is very important. And the regions and the healthcare systems that foster that support the data sets, that invest and implement the data sets in different genomic populational programs, they have advantage here. And another important aspect is the business model. The founders have to show the reliable business model that which address the clear unmet need on the market, because it's very important that they at some stage after the seed stage, or they have to find this product market fit. And if they don't have if they have a huge cash burn and they just heavily invest in R&D without reliable business model. So they probably won't make it. And still, in classic biotech industry, you just invest money in R&D and you wait until this molecule will make it until stage 2, and the possible exit strategy is M&A or IPO for the biotech industry. But currently we see the trend, the mindset of biotech, it's shifting to tech bio, because more tech founders, they're moving into the biotech industry. They may not have the biology background, etc., but they bring the sophisticated AI and machine learning neural network solutions to the biotech and digital health industry. And in the most cases, the pure tech founders, they are more sophisticated in business models, and they pay more attention to make the business model viable. That's very important, and that was one of the reasons of the current state of venture investment, or the current decline in venture investment in biotech, because during COVID, there were many startups with beautiful pitch decks, but the business models were not viable. You know, they couldn't make it. They just raised the first seed rounds, huge seed rounds during the COVID, but during this biotech hype, and they disappeared. That's why they most of the investors that came to this industry, we have a bunch of rockstar investors, that are focused on biotech. They have in-house expertise. But during the COVID, we saw an influx of the institutional investment that never invested in biotech before. And when they invested their money in this industry and these startups couldn't make it, there was the probability of success in biotech industry is very low. So they lost confidence. That's why we see this decline and correction on the market. So that's it.
No, that's really helpful, Sadiq. I mean, the key things that I took from that, Walid, that I want to put to you as a great example of an organisation working in the digital health space, growing in the digital health space. The question of understanding your business model and the unmet need that you're trying to solve, the problem that you're trying to solve. Give us your example as Be Healthy. What's your business model? What's the unmet need that you're looking to fill?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, this Sadiq's example in biohealth is actually very interesting, because something very similar happened in digital health and the whole telehealth space. Many organizations were created out of that COVID boom for video telehealth conversations, and a lot of those companies today don't exist anymore. Just a short few years past that date, and I think the main driver for that was trying to kind of jump on a quick trend and fill a need maybe that it wasn't the real challenge for the provider environment at whole. So when we looked at it from Be Healthy's standpoint, I mean, we've grown out of a 100-year-old healthcare business. So we've approached it from a little bit of a different avenue, where we provide a kind of a holistic solution, not just doing this telehealth, but providing a application for medical records, video, ongoing care plans for medical care. So actually driving, what Simon mentioned earlier is, healthcare outcomes for patients, for people, where the technology was driven to support the businesses be more cost effective, to operate more efficiently, to reach more customers, and as well make sure that the customers are getting better. What the kind of keyword we use is the digiphysical, bridging the digiphysical divide, so that traditional healthcare providers aren't being replaced by any of this digital technology, but we're actually supplementing that and allowing them to scale and grow their businesses in ways they weren't able to do before. It ties into kind of all the topics we've mentioned of giving them a means to collect and gather that data so that then they can use this data in better ways to deliver better products, as well as better care to their patients.
I think there's a really interesting point there as well. If you talk about the unmet need, talking about the need to create a business, and it's interesting, I see a lot of digital health companies sort of crossing my desk, looking at Healthcare World from the point of view of an internationalization platform. We also have investors that come to us and bring us businesses that they're thinking of putting money into, and ask us whether those businesses could potentially scale across borders. So we get a lot of these put in front of us, and the number of times that you see, particularly clinician-led businesses, where you've got a clinician who is trying to solve his problem, but not thinking in terms of solving the patient's problem or the provider's problem or the payer's problem or the system's problem. And one of the things, Walid, I wanted to come back to you on this point. You're quite unique in this respect, aren't you? Because your business was actually created by a healthcare provider in Finland to solve their own problem because the tech that they wanted wasn't out there and readily available. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, almost 15 years ago, Mehiläinen, identified the need for digital services in across Finland. And, at the time, there weren't any providers available on the market. So it was an endeavor that they took on to build internally. And honestly, no one would recommend it. It's a huge ordeal to build a technology that integrates with many different technologies that are historically not very friendly to integrate with in the healthcare space, but deliver on the continual changes in regulations, in technology that has to be incorporated, and really the needs of businesses and their business models. And that's exactly right. So after those 15 years, really the market almost sought us because they really were interested in what Mehiläinen had done as the case study, which created our organization. There's now a spin-off dedicated to taking this software across borders. And you talk about that as, how do you take this from a regional provider, which was only built for Finland? That in itself is a huge task. Now that we've been in 10 countries, we see that every healthcare system is unique. Every country's requirements are very unique. So we really have to take a kind of a global mindset on what we've built and how that translates to others from that 100-year-old healthcare business, but operate in a very nimble tech startup mindset to be able to find the right markets for us and also really localize the product. So it does work in the 10 plus countries we're already in, and hopefully many more as we continue to grow.
Thanks for that, Walid. Before I move on, and Simon, I'm going to come to you in just a moment. I do need to just make a quick mention that if you're enjoying today's conversation, you want to hear more of this and you want to see this live, we are going to be in Dubai for the Emerge 2050 event on the 7th and 8th of May. All of the speakers there here today will be speaking at that event. I think Sadiq and Simon are both chairing. I'm chairing. Walid, I think you're going to be on one of my panels, and Sophie, who hopefully is going to be joining us in a few minutes, will also be taking part. And to sign up, to register for the event, emerge2050.com, or we'll be posting the registration link on LinkedIn straight after this event this morning. But moving on with the conversation, one of the things that Sadiq mentioned and Walid has also talked about is startups, digital health businesses that help to generate strong data. Simon, from your point of view, how important is it that a solution like Walid's creates useful and actionable data? And how important do you perceive it is to investors that there is a data play involved in a startup's business plan?
So I think just before I come to that, I just want to respond to something Sadiq was saying, which which I think was really, really important. And then I'll come back to what you've asked, Steve. He talked about the tech companies starting to drive things in biotech, tech bio, as he phrased it, with sort of the business rigor and the focus on ROI. And I think this is really, really important, because what is common, and your example of the clinician solving his problem is a good one, is everyone has ideas. They're very cheap, and they're very easy to dream up of, oh, if I could do this, do that, do the other. But the thing that makes a business work is execution. And execution is hard. And that's where an awful lot of companies, somebody dreams up an idea, gets some people excited, gets some investors excited, and charges off spending money, burning cash, but they don't have the experience, knowledge, skill set, and people around them to execute. And that's a recipe for disaster. And that's incredibly common in this space. So I just wanted to pick up on what Sadiq was saying, because I absolutely recognise that.
And it is an outstanding point. It is an outstanding point.
As somebody who's made more than his fair share of mistakes.
It's an outstanding point, because at the end of the day, as you say, it's very, very easy to have an idea. And as I mentioned earlier in the conversation, some of those ideas are brilliant. They solve problems. They are common to what everybody is trying to achieve in terms of developing patient care, better systems, whatever it may be, things that help drive healthcare forward. Some of them, are a clinician trying to solve their own individual problem. They don't kind of go anywhere. But ideas are fine. But the execution of those ideas, we've talked about this many times. You see plenty of startups where the idea is fantastic, but they don't have the marketing. They don't have the operational expertise. A good COO is incredibly valuable, as I know from my own experience with my own business, and you know exactly what I'm talking about there. A good strategic chief exec or individual driving the business. Again, that comes from a personal example. Completely get what you're saying. Now, I'd like to go back and ask you to answer the original question about data. How important is that?
So I think we have to think about data in two quite separate ways. One is input data, and Sadiq again talked about having good quality labeled data to train your models. And you cannot create a powerful machine learning model unless you have good training data. You just can't do it. You can't calibrate it. You can't tune it. You can't assess it. Labeled data is very, very valuable. That's why we all click on traffic lights in captures, because we're labeling data. But I think more modern techniques actually mean unlabeled data is becoming increasingly valuable. You can automate a lot of the labeling, and you can use unsupervised machine learning techniques where the labeling is less necessary. Clustering and propensity scoring analysis and things like that are becoming more standard tools in any data scientist's kit bag. So input data is vital. Without it, we don't start. Output data, so data that the business creates, has a number of values. One is it's the raw material that business uses to kick on, to evaluate, to demonstrate its ROI, which becomes marketing, which becomes sales, which generates more data, and round you go through a virtuous circle. The other thing is it's a valuable asset in and of its own right. And this is where there's a concept of exhaust data, which I really like. So you've done a thing, you've burnt the fuel, you've delivered the outcome, you've moved the vehicle down the road, and what comes out the exhaust is waste. But in the data world, it's not waste. It's really valuable. So recognizing that your business is creating exhaust data and that you need to capture it and work out how to use it in the business or to monetize it is a skill that I'm starting to see some businesses recognize that they need, and a way to create separate revenue streams from the primary purpose of the business. And that's really quite exciting, because what you start to get is a business whose purpose is to deliver patient care, but they also become a pure play data business. And that's quite interesting.
It's a really interesting point, this. And I guess, we come back to the start of the conversation and the fact that we are living in an increasingly competitive environment when it comes to attracting investors' cash. The cash isn't washing around in the way that it was 2-3 years ago. So from that point of view, Simon and Sadiq, I want to come to you with this question as well. Is it still possible to get, or how hard is it to get investment money behind a business that doesn't have a data proposition? So you've got a good, well-run solution, but it doesn't have a data play. Is it still possible to get investment in that business, Simon, in your view, and Sadiq?
I have no idea. I'm not involved in any businesses that don't have a data play. Can't help.
Which is probably the answer in itself. Sadiq, from your point of view, if I've got a really good business that solves a problem in healthcare, and it might be a staffing solution, it might be a consultation platform, but I don't generate data, I don't have that data play, is it still going to be possible for me to find the that I'm looking for?
There's a data play in both of those, Steve. There's always a data play.
Is that the lesson to be learned here, then? That no matter what you do, there is always a data opportunity and you just need to find it. Sadiq, what's your view?
I agree with Simon. Without data, it's almost impossible, and I don't have any idea about the track record of the companies that have low competencies and low and don't have an access and don't generate the valuable data, and it's very hard. So the data is very important for investors currently, and that Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, he made a very interesting. He has a very interesting quote about that biology now has the opportunity to be engineering, not science. So he mentioned that we're on our way to digitalize the biology. We're successful in doing that in genomics. With development of sequencing technologies, we digitalized the genes, and now it supported the growth of new personalized treatments, because the modern the most efficient molecules in cancer, the targeted therapy, they have they are targeted to specific mutations, and you see that it's very intertwined. It's very connected. You digitalize, you got the data, and then with all these data you can make a new insights, new discoveries, and to address the new unmet needs. That's why the data is extremely important. So that's my opinion.
So Waleed, I guess the question to you is, where is your exhaust data and are you using it?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think if I look at that correctly in our space, not only do we enable the collection of all this data and kind of direct interaction, but we have a lot of customers that take a lot of that information and launch things like population health management programs. And I think this is kind of the exhaust data that is just slowly being gathered and collected by the day-to-day interaction and just operating their business, but now is converted to a whole new service or business that they can go after for chronic care cases, where they can identify the right needs, but then also come back to the platform and output it to deliver that data and deliver more services based off of that data. So yeah, absolutely, really interesting. Based on seeing how do you control that data and basically gather very secure information, because we are talking about healthcare and there are a lot of privacy concerns, but enable customers to consent and really get value out of it. Whether that's just knowledge or very specific care that helps them with lifestyle changes or different treatments that can really have an impact on their life.
So I guess what we've done here is, so far we've talked about the need to have a business which meets an unmet need. We've talked about the need for a business in the digital health sphere to have a solid data strategy. Sadiq, from your point of view, when working with VCs, those are obviously two key categories that a VC is going to be thinking very hard about and wants to see before they make an investment. What other criteria are there that will differentiate my idea and my business from the other cash-hungry entrepreneurs that we're up against bidding for cash?
Yeah, it's a very difficult question, because different the VCs, they have different approaches for the due diligence and different valuation techniques for health tech and biotech industries. So it's very specific, and I would say that the main criteria, as it was already mentioned by Simon, is a viable business model, and the real unmet need that exists on the market. But for that, you have to make a very sophisticated market research, and you have to have an access to the experts who operate every day in this sector, just to identify these unmet needs. This is very important. And another aspect that becomes more and more important, and I just want to mention that all we're talking, all the aspects of investment we're discussing today, it's not an investment advice, it's just personal opinions.
Yes,
and observation.
Important to make that disclaimer.
Yeah. So I have access to these investors community and founders community. I met many startups recently, and I see the trend that investors, they pay more attention to the management, to the CEO, to the founder, to the personal characteristics of the team and their track record. This is very important. You can build a very efficient model algorithm, but people who will implement it, who will develop it and bring it to the patient, it should be very bright and dedicated team. So they pay more attention to evaluate the personal characteristics and track record of the management team, of the CEO, and specifically obviously the founders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the people are vitally important.
Yes.
In a particular way. The other thing that there's a phrase that I've heard used many times, and I want to kind of test wire this with you a little bit. It's not just about money; it's also about the right money. So in other words, it's about the right investor for the right business. How true is that in this very competitive era that we're in? How picky should I be as an entrepreneur about which investment I take?
Yeah, I agree with this thesis, because some investors that has been operating in healthcare, health tech, and biotech business for a long time, they developed a huge in-house expertise, and they support the smart money approach in investing into healthcare startups. It means that sometimes the small early stage startups, they may lack some competencies, for example, in finance or in to scale their technology. And in this case, due to the access, if the investor is focused on this field, if this VC has expertise and has access to talents, they can delegate some professionals. They can provide very tangible, very precious advice, how to scale your business, how to where to find the professionals that can help you to build a good financial model. And that's it. That is the value of the industry-focused investor, the in-house expertise that they can delegate and provide to the startup founders.
Simon, has that been your experience? You know, you've kind of worked with investors in the past. Is it important that you have investors that suit the business that you're working in? Waleed, I know you want to come in on this point as well. Simon?
Absolutely. I'm actually seeing a lot less so-called dumb money. Just people put money in but have no interest or involvement in the business, and a lot more smart money, people who bring specific skills, capability to support often quite naive and founders, and I think that's very, very valuable. And I enjoy working with people who are experts in making money. They're investors. That's what they do, and can bring a whole range of skills to bear. And there are different VCs who have different areas of focus. So there's one I was working with last year who are specialists in sort of go-to-market marketing and that whole side of things, and they choose businesses who have a good idea, who can run the business operationally, but are underexposed, and that's what they do, and they recognize that. The other thing that I'm cautious of when looking at investment is, what's the investor's model? Are they an equity investor? Are they a company that will load the business that they're investing in with debt? And I've seen that kill businesses, and is not a model I would ever work with. Do they support early stage businesses with a warranty ratchet type model? So that there are all sorts of nuances, both in terms of dumb money versus smart money, but also in the investment model, that I pay a lot of attention to.
Waleed, you like to come on this point?
Yeah, I just want to add, from kind of our perspective, we've been super fortunate, again, to be, maybe not have gone out and seeked a investor, but in the similar sense, seen the value of having the right investors in our business. It's given us the ability to do the right things for our customers, build the right products, versus many startups that, like you said, maybe are just trying to please financial investors and are sadly sometimes driven in a different or difficult direction. So that's also invaluable for all startups to have the right team supporting them in the business sense, but also fortunately in our case, in medical expertise and knowledge as well.
Yeah. Simon, and come back to you on.
Sorry, just one more point on this before we move on. Time horizon is really important.
Yeah.
Because depending where a VC is in its cycle, a 2-year, 3-year, 5-year time horizon, depending on your business and what your time life cycle is, it might not be a good match, because they might have a 2-year time horizon based on where they are in the cycle, but your business needs 5, 7, 8 years, in which case this is just not going to work.
I also want to come back to stick with that point about people just for a moment, because at the end of the day, is there a case, and talking about this idea about the right money, Is there a case of when you're looking at an investor needs to be thought of almost as a team member, and as a team member that fills in the gaps that you don't have already in your business? Simon?
Absolutely, and that's what I was saying about, you know, different VCs have different skill sets that they bring to the party. So some are operators, some are all about marketing. You know, they have different areas of focus and subject matter expertise that they bring to the party, and getting that fit is really, really important. There's something else Waleed said which I wanted to pick up on and I've now forgotten. Sorry, it's gone.
No worries. Sadiq, I think you were going to come in on this point about the fit for the investor into the team.
Yeah, I already mentioned that it's common practice, especially in North American biotech market, when the prominent VCs they provide the expertise, the smart money approach to help with marketing, CFO or CTO functions. If you have the pure science non-tech founders and they need some tech expertise, they can bring it on to the table. But I support the vision that you have to be very selective with the investor, because they take the place on the board, they can vote for decisions, and that may influence the future of your company. That's why it's very important.
Absolutely. Moving on a little bit. I know, sorry, Waleed looked like you wanted to come in there. Did you want to say something, Waleed?
No, I was just going to look at it also from other perspective that Sadiq mentioned. I mean, for investors, they're also looking for the right team that can really execute. And having worked at a number of different startups, I can really second that. I mean, it's the businesses, often are put through very difficult situations throughout the years, and it really takes a very strong, dedicated team, with a passion for solving that specific challenge and endeavor that they're on to succeed and persevere. And I think that's really important for investors as well, to make sure that they're finding the right team and the right people, which make the organizations very successful.
No, I think the people side of this is incredibly important. I want to move on to another topic that's very close to my heart here, which is that question about internationalization. And Sadiq, to come to you on this one, for me, and obviously I would say this, wouldn't I? I'm managing director of Healthcare World. I think it's incredibly important for a business to have an international strategy and not be focusing purely on one individual home market. Is that something you would agree with? From an investor's point of view, how important is it to have a business that will scale across borders?
I think that both regional and global strategies are important, because you have to test and fine-tune your technology on your market, where you understand the regulations, the journey to the market, the patient journey, all these aspects, because it's a very science-intensive business, the healthcare, and it's very regulated. So, but I think that digital health solutions can scale across the borders, and the entrepreneurs, they must adapt to different regulatory environments and market needs. So it's always better to go global, to scale, and from the venture capital point of view, you have to scale very fast. You have to reach a certain ARRs and other metrics to continue raise rounds of venture capital. So if from the venture capital point of view, it's very important to the scalability and to make your business to go for new markets and make your business global. And but also you have to start with local regulations. You have to understand regional local regulations and patient behaviors, because it can vary widely by region. And I think we'll talk about this later. The regulations and the harmonization of regulations is very important. That you have to keep in mind, especially in biotech business. The approval of your molecule, it can be different. The requirements, they can be very different in the regions, in Asia, in Europe, and the North American market. So if you start your business in the region where you have some regulatory agreements with other markets, some harmonization processes, it exists. These practices, they exist in biotech industry. So after the approval, you get a huge market, right? You approve it in one country, and you have access to the multi-million population. So that could be a wise strategy, of course.
I suppose, as somebody from the UK, I probably should mention the effects of Brexit in that regard, in terms of access to European markets for UK startups. But we'll gloss over that one. I guess there's also a question that I'd like to kind of follow up on there, Sadiq, that harks back to what we were talking about a little while ago, i.e. that question of how an investor can form an important and vital cog in the team that helps to create the opportunity. So if you're looking as a startup to scale internationally, you're looking into new markets, how helpful is it to have an investor in the market you're looking to expand into? Sadiq.
I think that's very important, because if the investor has a solid track record, they collect a specific expertise with go-to-market strategy, and obviously they can provide valuable support and advice and competencies for early stage startup that just just imagine you just find the product market fit and you want to go global, and it's just if you want to enter the new market, the new region, to make a solid market research, it's not a cheap procedure. You can do it in-house with your own analytics team and try to do it yourself. But if you want to make it right, you have to invest heavily to delegate it to some consulting firms that are operating on these markets, and it takes your funds, and it takes investment. So I think if you have an investor with such an expertise and track record in this region, or it could be the large fund with global presence, which operates on different markets, it could be helpful too. And based on my experience, on the place of the startup founder, it's better to look for such kind of investor.
The other thing you could do, of course, is use an organisation like Healthcare World. Obviously, I would say that. It's what we do in terms of trying to help organisations to enter new markets and provide some of that, backstop, contact information, regulatory information, particularly the intelligence on what's going on and what opportunities there might be in those markets. And actually, it's a function that we provided to investors in the past when looking to understand the international opportunity for the business that they're invested in. The other thing I want to pick up on, Sadiq, in terms of what you just said, is that importance of of understanding those markets and their regulatory functions. I mean, one particular example that I give quite regularly, I'm often asked about from European, Middle Eastern, and UK businesses looking to enter the US market. And the advice I always give to any digital health startup looking to go into the US is that America is a huge market. Its regulatory frameworks are complex, and generally, US providers tend to prefer to buy from US organizations. So from that point of view, one of the first pieces of advice I always give is look for a US investor with contacts and knowledge of the market, which I think bears out what you were just saying. Simon, you had your hand up. You wanted to come in on this point.
Actually, I want to come in the previous point, but I'll pick this one up too. Internationalization is hard, it's expensive, and it's slow. And this is because sales is the hardest job in any business. As you well know, Steve.
Nodding enthusiastically.
and as you well know, sales is about relationships. It's a contact sport. So having an investor in a target market who has a network, who has relationships, who has a reputation is gold dust, really valuable. Because if you're, a Swedish, an English, a French company looking to get into a market in Brazil, in South Africa, in America, in wherever, you don't know who's who. Nobody knows who you are. You have no reputation. You have no relationships. How are you even going to open the door to have a conversation and excite people about what you can do? It's really hard. So investors or partners or somebody who is known in the market and can introduce you and has a reputation as an honest broker, gold dust.
And again, much as I hate to turn this into an advert for Healthcare World, that's kind of what we do, isn't it? But there you go. Waleed, I want to come to you on this point about internationalization, because of course, this is you're at the coalface right now because you're trying to expand in various markets around the world. What's your experience been? How have you gone about looking to do that internationalization piece?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're kind of exactly right. We very quickly became an international company. Actually, our first customers were outside of Finland. So as an organization, we very quickly saw that path to, again, take that proven technology for many, many years. Myself here being responsible for many of the regions that Simon just mentioned outside of Europe and the world, I'm facing exactly those challenges. Every country has very different needs and different requirements, especially in the digital health space. And a lot of the best information that we've been able to gain has been through these partners and these experts in those countries. And honestly, that is still a work in progress, right? We're a startup. You have to find the right partners to work with, because not all of them, maybe understand your business model, or also could even really provide much value, because we are a very specialized product working with providers. So identifying those is in and of itself a large sales effort that, as Simon has mentioned, is difficult to do, especially because, frankly, in our space, everybody wants to partner, right? There is an excitement and an appetite for digital technologies, but finding out the right players is really key, and is an ongoing activity, which we'd welcome hearing from anyone about, because it is definitely, I think, what drives success for us, again, across Africa, Middle East, each country quite different in how they operate and regulate telehealth and digital solutions.
Well, I was going to ask you that, because I think it's a really interesting point. I mean, I guess Be Healthy is quite fascinating in the respect that it's something that grew up as a national solution for Finland. So inevitably, when it came to the commercialization of the business, the first thing you were going to do was look around the world and go, what other markets could benefit from what we battle tested and proved in Finland? And from that perspective, I think you're probably in a fairly unique position to answer my next question, which is, where are the hotbeds of digital healthcare? Where are the regions and countries that entrepreneurs looking to internationalize and investors looking to internationalize their investments should be looking at?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I might be biased to the Middle East, so got really excited about the opportunity of bringing Be Healthy and growing Be Healthy here in the region. But I think Africa and the Middle East have a tremendous appetite for digital in general. They're very young, growing populations that are very technically savvy. They already do a lot online, and sadly are lagging behind when it comes to healthcare. We have huge lifestyle health issues across these countries and these regions, and a big part comes from having the right knowledge, having the right systems in place to let's say drive and encourage the right behaviors. And it's been really exciting to be working with something like Be Healthy that can help providers to deliver that to their customers by being that little trigger. And the growth we're seeing now with digital fitness or well-being trackers and all these different tools are bringing in a lot of this information to help drive that. So I think there is a tremendous opportunity here, and we're also seeing tremendous opportunity across Europe, to be frank. In digital, the Nordics seem to be quite advanced in what they're doing, and we're seeing a lot of the other European countries, really being interested in speaking with us and working with us, and that's driving a lot of the opportunity there. And I think, like you said earlier, we haven't looked at America because it is a very different market. There are probably many players out there, so I can't really speak to what's going on the ground there. But finding our space within Europe and Middle East and Africa, definitely some of the strong hotbed for us.
Yeah, it's interesting that actually this is a question that I'm asking of you is a question that's asked me quite regularly. When we start working with digital health startups that want to internationalize, and the question of where to go comes up, I think the Middle East is always a good answer, because at the end of the day, you look at Saudi, you look at the UAE, whether that be Abu Dhabi or Dubai, you're looking at markets that have money, that are developing their economies rapidly, where there is a real will to try and create stronger healthcare. The transformation program in Saudi, the large providers that are now dominating the UAE landscape, they are hungry to develop. So it does make it, I think, probably for most of the people that I work with from an international point of view, the place that they want to go first. So Dick, let me flip this around. We've talked there about which markets our entrepreneurs and investors should target to sell to. Which markets or areas of the world should cash-hungry entrepreneurs be targeting to look for the cash and the investment? Where globally are the investors?
I agree, and I support the opinion of Walid. He mentioned that the GCC countries and MENA region, the population is very young, tech savvy, and they embrace the digital technology. So it's a very good market. And another aspect is regulation on this market. In my opinion, the smart regulation is always ahead of the trends. And if you look back, like in 2017, the UAE appointed first AI minister. So it was before all this GPT hype and everything. Yes, these technologies existed in 2017 and even before, but the major trends started like a few years ago, and they already appointed the minister and they started to build the regulatory framework. So it's very important that regulation is ahead of the trends and they meet the needs of founders and investors, and they prepare the infrastructure. That's another point to support the MENA region for health tech startups. But earlier I mentioned that the subsector in healthcare is very important too. And obviously for biotech industry, the North American market, with its advanced infrastructure, major venture capital funds and institutional investors, government support, fast-track programs, high technology adoption rates, it's still the major market for biotech, but European and Asian Pacific markets are also important players. And I would say that for health tech, obviously the MENA region has very important advantages. For biotech, we see that the local authorities, they try to make some important steps. They develop strategies, long-term strategies for biotech industry, and obviously it will come. But there's still a lot to do in this very scientific, intense field. And for classic early stage biotech startups, the North American and European and Asian Pacific markets still look very promising.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. There's a slight difference between the biotech and the health tech, isn't there, in terms of kind of the appetite and the opportunity. And when I was talking about the US market earlier on, I was talking about selling digital solutions to healthcare providers. That is challenging. However, as you've demonstrated there, from a biotech point of view, the US continues to be dominant. You've talked there again about kind of markets to sell to. The question that I was asking as well was the one about where is the money? So is the money predominantly coming from the US? Is that also coming from the Middle East? Where are the investors that entrepreneurs should be targeting around the world? Sadiq.
Yeah, it's hard to tell because now the world has changed, and you can meet the startup founders from different markets, from all the markets that we already mentioned: North American, European, Asia Pacific, Latin America, coming to Middle East looking for some investment, and vice versa. So it's very mixed process, but based on my experience, I met the founders of global startups or the startups from these regions coming to Middle East and looking for some investors. And to be honest, some of the founders, they were interested in opening some, for example, dry labs, I mean the tech labs, for example, in AI drug industry, you have a dry lab with bioinformaticians, the IT guys, and the wet lab. So some of the companies, some of the startups, they launched the dry labs in the regions. So I see more and more interest from the global startups coming to the Middle East and looking not just for investment, but creating some local presence in the region.
So I suppose actually what we ought to use this is a great opportunity to plug the event we're all going to be at in a couple of weeks' time. You want to meet investors and you want to meet startups, then the place to do so is going to be Emerge 2050 in Dubai on the 7th and 8th of May. So we'll see them all there. Simon, just coming at this from a British point of view, how concerned should we be that when we've spoken to our esteemed colleagues here about the places to go for both startups and for investments, the UK doesn't even figure on either of their radars? Is that something we should be worried about as Brits?
I think Britain's place as an entrepreneurial data engineering fountain and investment has definitely taken a knock. I think we all know why, and I don't need to go into that here.
Might have been mentioned already.
and risk upsetting half the audience and enraging the other half. I think there's still a lot of money. London is still one of the biggest financial centres in the world, even if it's not quite what it was. And UK academia and creative technology is still, top tier, if not top 1%. So I think there's still a lot of opportunity and a lot to offer. But I think reputationally, it's tougher than it was. I'd be interested to hear what Sadiq's view on that is. I think that would be quite instructive.
Sadiq, throw that one over to you. What's your view of the UK as an investment and digital health hub?
It's hard to tell because I'm not an expert on the. I know several venture capital funds investing in biotech that are based in the UK, and we know there's a bunch of startups coming from UK that develop cutting edge solutions for healthcare. But I cannot. I'm not an expert on the UK market, so it's hard to make any conclusion.
I think what Sadiq is doing there is deftly sidestepping the question, and probably democratically and diplomatically so. What I will say, Simon, is that if our good friend Professor Jed Byrne were here, International Director at NHS England, he would probably be sitting there and talking about the fact that one thing we have got in the UK is an entirely unique system with the NHS that creates, by the nature of the way that it's paid for, a real hotbed for frugal innovation. So, one of the things that we do have, because of the fact that we have, let's say, budgetary constraints in the NHS, is that we are very good at coming up with digital solutions and startups that are there to help save money for our health system. And from that perspective, we end up with some great ideas that save money for the UK and in commercially led healthcare systems can then be adapted to create cost savings and better profits for commercial systems. So there's life in the old dog yet, for want of a better way of putting it. We've got about 10 minutes left. So I want to now kind of get into, given the caveat that Sadiq gave at the top of the conversation, that none of us are providing investment advice and therefore not liable for doing so. But I want to get into just some guidance and some thoughts about where, what our opinions are around the advice that we would give to entrepreneurs, or what we would do ourselves if we were in that position. Sadiq, I'll come to you first. From your point of view, if you've got an entrepreneur in front of you with a glass of wine in his hand, saying, Sadiq, what are the things that I should be doing? What are the things that I should be thinking about in terms of the way I present myself to investors? What are the key things that I need to have in place?
Me personally, I believe in the future growth of already established trends in digital health, AI solutions, remote care. And there are like three major reasons for that. point of care keeps shifting to whenever the patient is. And the pandemic highlighted how many limitations patient has regarding the access and affordability of healthcare, and how much a telemedicine can alleviate the hospital burden. That's what Walid mentioned earlier. Also, the second point is predictive analytics, computer vision solutions, and chatbots became a part of everyday clinical practice. Doctors use it, patients can use some chatbots for early diagnostics. There are apps that help you to make a photo of some skin lesions, and they can recommend you to go to see your doctor, and it's very important for early diagnostics. And the one thing I wanted to mention, and I try to mention on each of my presentations and public speaking activities, that AI will not replace physicians, but physicians using AI will replace those that don't. That's my vision. So, and at-home lab tests, pregnancy tests, diabetes, continuous glucose monitoring, wearables, COVID-19 tests, and others that industry developed rapidly during the COVID pandemics. That should be my 3 major points in conclusion.
I think I have to go to Simon straight away on that because of the smile that crossed his face when you talked about AI and its effect on clinicians. Simon, do you want to react to that?
So yes and no. I think the AI-enabled clinician, as you said, at the moment is the predominant model. I think I'm aware of one computer vision model, which is now being used as the first reader for a specific imaging modality in order to screen out low-risk normal images. And those are then sampled, but they're not routinely then read by a human. So that is the AI replacing a human. But what the AI does is it screens out the low risk normals, and then on the rest of the images, if there is an abnormality it detects, it flags it to signpost the clinician to make them quicker and more effective. So I think saying AI is not replacing clinicians is starting to become not true. But it's very early days, and by and large, we are, as Sadiq said, we're talking about AI-enabled clinicians, and that makes you faster, potentially more accurate, more efficient, all good things. The other thing where AI is very interesting is in the rare disease ultra specialist space. So way back when, 25 years ago, I was training as a surgeon in a very small specialty, dealing with very weird cancers. And they were so rare that even our pathologist, who was dealing with some of the highest volumes in the UK, in order to get a second read, because these cancers were always read by 2 histopathologists, in order to get a second read, literally there was a pool of 5 pathologists with the relevant depth of experience, and they would literally put histopathology slides in the post across the country to get the second read to confirm a diagnosis. Now, with vast libraries of X-rays or histopathology that models can be trained on, computer vision becomes your second reader, and it completely changes the clinical pathway for that. The bit of healthcare that nobody sees, the stuff that happens in the laboratories, the back office, that is vital, and that is game changing, because it it changes the diagnostic pathway from, weeks, literally posting slides around the country, to minutes. And that is powerful.
I think we need to caveat this slightly in the respect that, before we start getting hate mail from doctors all over the world to Simon for telling them that they're all going to be irrelevant in 10 years' time, it's only certain areas where we'll see AI.
Sorry. I've got to come back on that. Sorry, Stig. I know you've got your hand up. So I said sales is a contact sport.
Yeah.
By God, healthcare is a contact sport.
Yeah.
It is doctor and patient in a room or on a phone, but it is person talking to person.
Yeah.
That is how you deliver healthcare, certainly at the moment.
Absolutely. But there are certain specialties where AI is going to start to take a much more prevalent role. And I think the one that you gave the example of there, the radiologist, imaging, I think, is becoming more and more, or is likely to become more and more dominated by the AI reader, the computer that can see anomalies in an image that a human eye just can't. Is that right?
Can't. It's about experience. Radiology is a very difficult technical specialty. I was always woeful at reading X-rays. Don't know why. It's just not how my brain works. And AI trained appropriately on vast image repositories, input data, can be very, very powerful. But as I said, it's only in very specific use cases it's becoming a first reader, and it's nearly always supporting, enabling a clinician.
Sadiq, I know, wants to come in, but before he does, I have to pose a question back to you, actually, from the precision medicine event that we did last week, where we had an AI specialist on the call. And it seems relevant, given they're talking about the massive amount of data required to read medical imaging, to come back on this point. I did have an AI specialist on the call, and the question I posed to him, which I'd also like to hear your answer to, was simply this: what is the difference between AI and maths?
There isn't one. So this was a big argument I had in my business, because we talked about data science, and my marketing people were desperate for me to start talking about data science and AI, and because I had a bunch of PhD astrophysicists and people like that who were my data science team, they were really quite purist. We did maths, we did stats, machine learning. Well, that's stats with a fancy mask on. We did build neural networks, which are probabilistic statistical engines. I loathe the word AI personally, because it is, jazz hands. It's all maths.
I mean, it's AI. I always just think of robot overlords taking over the world, whereas obviously when it comes to mathematical modelling in healthcare,
I think that says more about you.
I think that
says more about you than anything else, Steve.
You're quite probably true. So Nick, thanks for your patience. I think you wanted to come in, I think, on the earlier point.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on Simon's idea about the rare disease. I totally agree that this sector is underserved, and the AI solutions can really disrupt the modern patient care in this field, and specifically in genomics, because the medical geneticist is they have very limited workforce globally. So there are around 7,000 genetic counselors and 3,500 medical geneticists globally. So it's very limited amount of specialists, and they have to handle around 7,300, something like that, diagnosis Mendelian diseases. There was a huge amount of data, and I analyzed their workflow because I was speaking about this unmet need on last Emerge conference. They have a lot of data to analyze, to work with different databases, and these are the industries where AI can make a difference, some decision support tools and other solutions. On the artificial intelligence and machine learning difference, in my opinion, I think that the artificial intelligence is mostly the ability of the computer to think and simulate the human mental processes, like such as reasoning, learning, and providing answers. Whereas the machine learning, the idea of machine that can mimic human intelligence, it's not so applicable to machine learning. It's mostly that we teach a machine to perform a specific task. In my opinion, it's my personal view, this is a difference between these two aspects.
Are you concerned about robot overlords?
Sorry?
Are you concerned about robot overlords? Don't worry, no. not a serious question, don't worry. We've only got a few minutes left, so I want to come to each of you just for a very, very quick point. If you were in the audience as an entrepreneur watching this session and thinking about how they're going to approach their strategies around growth, internationalization, looking for investment, what's the one takeaway each of you would like to give to our audience today? Waleed, I'll start with you, and I guess from your point of view, it's going to be about how you go about hitting that growth phase, right?
Yeah, I think honestly, one of the most important things is really focusing on understanding your value proposition, finding out what is really needed by this new market you're going after. That involves speaking to as many people as possible to really get a grasp of not what you think to be real, but what is actually taking place, and really being targeted and focus on delivering the right solutions for that. And the one other thing I would add is just building the right ecosystem to support you in doing it. As an entrepreneur building a technology product, you may want to solve every problem, but that doesn't always make sense. There are specialized solutions in pretty much every industry or every sector you target, and it may make sense that you focus on what you know best, and build a holistic solution with the right partners to solve the overall challenge, and in our world help people be healthier and have better, longer, healthier lives.
Fantastic answer, Waleed. Appreciate that one. Simon, what's the takeaway that you think our audience should be taking with them from this session this morning?
So what Waleed said, I absolutely support.
You can't just say what Waleed said. You have to start with something original.
And hold your horses. Evidence. If you're delivering clinical outcome, you need evidence that you can do that effectively, at least as effectively as your competitors, but then you have to be cheaper, quicker, or better than your competitors. And that, by evidence in the clinical world, that means in the scientific literature, to my mind. That means a published scientific paper in a peer-reviewed journal. And the second thing is evidence that your business works. So that's, a track record and a business plan and a strategy that demonstrates that you understand how to run a business that actually makes money. Those are the two things.
Fantastic. Sadiq, last word to you. What's the big thing that I need if I'm going to come to a VC looking for money? What's the killer thing that I need that's going to help me secure that cash?
Yeah, my closing remarks would be that the biotech and health tech sectors, they will continue to grow. If you look into the most reliable reports, they predict a significant growth pumped by AI development in these sectors. And another important aspect that we have not to exclude that there may be new pandemics ahead. So the pandemic's readiness is very important. So I see that the shift in mindset from health span to lifespan. So the modern investors and startups, they pay more attention to the lifespan, and it's a result of the development of precision medicine and personalized treatments. So the development of genetic technology, it's unstoppable. So the projected pharma market size is huge. So I believe in this sector, and despite the decrease in investment and the venture winter, so-called venture winter, in my opinion, it's more like a correction than a decline. And the main thing is to form scientific-based approach in biotech and health tech. As it was mentioned by Simon, I strongly support this point of view. The combination of strong scientific evidence and robust business plan. This is a key to success.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sadiq. That's all we have time for. We've been a fantastic conversation this morning. I guess my summary, it's a more competitive world out there where you're looking for investment money for digital health, but it's still a growing market, and there is still money out there to be found for the right organization with the right strategy, the right business, the right idea. Thank you to Waleed, thank you to Sadiq, thank you to Simon, thank you to Emerge 2050 for inviting us to speak there in the next couple of weeks. You'll see all four of us in Dubai in a couple of weeks. We hope to see you there too. Thanks very much for joining us this morning. Goodbye.